Oh my goodness. Needles is gone. Chapter 18, Tyrell. The stress of losing Needles and having Jet and Grace not talking to each other makes me break out in a rash. Or maybe I was going to break out anyway. Evangeline's broccoli slaw does that to me. But when your two best friends are engaged in an open war, it only makes it worse. Jet and I keep checking the shed. No Needles. Jet insists on changing the water, but the meat gets all buggy, so we have to throw it away. Jet doesn't talk much on these missions. I guess it's too painful. I never realized he was so into Needles. I miss Needles too. Till now I didn't know how important it was to have a cool secret thing going on in my life. I mean, Needles didn't have much personality, but dealing with him added some variety to my days. Plus, Jet's so down in the dumps over losing Needles that all the things we used to do together have ground to a halt. No more candy business, no more trips to Hedge Apple. We've even stopped doctoring Sarah's Landon letters. Jet lost interest, and I don't have the guts to steam them open on my own. The weird part is Sarah actually seems more frustrated by her mail now, not less, as if she misses having pages of unsolved puzzles to chew on. What's wrong? I ask her when I see her gazing miserably into the latest letter. She's despondent. I think Landon might have found another girl. What? He would never do that. She sighs. Maybe not, but something's missing. He's just not that into me the way he used to be. And when I try to reassure her, she attacks me with an eyelash curler. Those things may look harmless, but it really hurts when you get your pinky squeezed in one. The problem really isn't Sarah. It's Jet. I've never had a friend like him, someone cool, someone exciting, and he actually liked me. At least I thought he did. Since Needles has been gone, he hasn't really been in a friendly mood. Or maybe the whole thing was mostly in my head, and Jet and I were never that close to begin with. I'm in the woods waiting my turn for the ladder up on the zipline platform when someone grabs me by the back of my t-shirt and hauls me into the woods. By the time I figure out what's happening, I'm staring face to chest at Brandon. What's the big idea? I exclaim, outraged. Why don't you ask your friend Baranov? Brandon sneers. Where's my candy? I know you're selling stuff all over the oasis, but that doesn't change what you owe me. My mind races. With Needles gone, Brandon can't blackmail us anymore. Jet must have cut him off, which makes sense as the candy supply has dried up. I raise myself up to my full height, which is still a good 10 inches shorter than Brandon. We don't have to give you anything anymore. For your information, Needles is gone. He breathes a dirty laugh. I know that, genius. Who do you think turned him loose? I'm blown away. Why would you do that? Because I didn't get my candy, he informs me. Now you know I mean business. I'm so mad that I momentarily forget who I'm talking to. A guy who could take me apart with his bare hands. That's not how blackmail works, I howl in his face. You got rid of the only thing that gave you power over us. Yeah, he chuckles, and then thinks it over. Wait, what? But I've already turned my back on him. I've got to find Jet and Grace and end the war between them. Needles was turned loose by the world's dumbest blackmailer. If I wasn't so upset, I'd be laughing my head off. You tell Baranov he still owes me, he calls after me. Or what? I toss over my shoulder. You'll tell Magnus about the lizard that isn't in the shed anymore? I leave him standing there fuming and still a little confused where he went wrong. I'm on my way to Cottage 29 when I spot Jet standing outside the meditation center. I adjust my course, panting. Jet, I have to tell you something. This is important. What is it? He asks a little impatiently when I reach him and stand there gasping, trying to catch my breath. Grace isn't the one who let Needles out, I manage. It was Brandon. Revenge for not getting his candy. His eyes widen for a moment, but then a look of understanding comes over him. Figures. Poor Needles. So Grace is innocent, I remind him. He's unimpressed. Brandon just beat her to it. Never trust someone who always thinks she knows what the right thing is. They can justify everything. He has a point. There's a certainty to Grace that's a little scary. The same way she can convince herself to keep a lizard, she can change her mind and convince herself he has to go. It's a good quality most of the time. I like a person who has the courage of her convictions, but when she turns on a dime, those convictions can whip around and whack you in the side of the head. They sure whack Needles. What are you doing here? I ask him. We don't have meditation again until tomorrow. Jet looks me in the eye. I'm going to spy on Ivory. I stare at him. Why? Doesn't it bug you that the adults around here all think Ivory is God's gift when she's obviously a giant phony? I shrug, thinking of my own parents. I mean, they like Magnus and the other Pathfinders, but Ivory's definitely their favorite. Then he tells me this crazy story about how Ivory tried to get him to confess to selling the candy bars. She waved a light pen in front of me, and it was like she was trying to get inside of my head or something. So I want to see what goes on during these special one-on-one meditation session. Maybe she's doing that to the adults too. Maybe that's why they love her so much. Okay, it sounds a little out there. On the other hand, I can tell by the look on Jet's face that he believes what he's saying 100%. Plus, I've always kind of wondered why my folks think the sun shines out of Ivory's butt. How are you going to pull it off? You don't think she's going to notice a guy hiding under her desk or behind her curtains? I should have figured that Vladimir Baranov's son would have it all planned out. There's an air vent in the wall of her office. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. I noticed it when she was working me over. I'm pretty sure it's big enough for me to fit into. Wow. The thought of squeezing through some tight ventilation duct brings an attack of claustrophobia. I have that too, along with the hives, the heaves, and everything else. You'll have to stay in there a long time, I warn, maybe until she leaves her office. You know, she doesn't hear you moving too much. Jet nods. Who's Jeff? Jet nods. I can do that. Even though I'm half convinced he's imagining things, I feel a surge of admiration. I could have my suspicions of Ivory for 100 years and still never work up the courage to convert that into real action. He pulls me into the cover of the side of the building. Here comes Ivory now. I peek out to see the meditation pathfinder crossing the grass from the area of the cottage, accompanied by her next appointment. Oh gosh, sorry. Guess who it turns out to be? My dad. Jet pulls the grating off the wall and squeezes inside. I'll let you know what to find out. And before I have a chance to think about it, I'm on my hands and knees cramming myself behind him into the duct. How can I pass up a chance to see why Ivory has such a hold over both my parents? What are you doing? Hisses Jess over his shoulder. Coming with you, I whisper back. Okay, but we have to be dead quiet. If we get caught in here, it's not going to look very whole. The duct is so tight that I barely have enough space to reach around and pull the grating back into place in the wall. The further up we squirm, the darker it gets until the passage lightens again and we come alongside another grill. Jet shakes his head, indicating that this is not Ivory's office. I crane my neck and peer out into the main meditation room, the one where the kids' sessions are held. We wriggle on and pretty soon it's pitch black again. It's dusty too. I rattle off 3 sneezes in a row. Cut it out, Jet rasps. I can't help it, I plead. I'm allergic to dust. You better help it. We're getting close. Over his shoulder, I can just make out the faint patch of light. It has to be another grate, this one into Ivory's office. Jet gets there first and flashes me a thumbs up. This is the place. I wiggle my way forward and arrive at the grill just in time to see Ivory coming into the office, followed by my father. I take a deep breath. Big mistake. Another speck of dust finds its way into my nose, and the sneeze is already forming in the back of my nasal passages. Jet snakes out a hand and squeezes my nostrils shut. The urge passes. Close call. Ivory and Dad are seated on opposite sides of the desk. So far, they're just chatting. Dad is reporting weight loss totals. He's already down 6.5 pounds, and my mom has lost 5. Ivory says that's great, but reminds him that wellness is not about numbers. It's a healthy lifestyle for your mind and body that allows you to become truly whole. In the gloom, my eyes find Jet's. If this is what we crawled through the guts of the building for, then it's not worth it. A classic Oasis conversation, the kind that must happen 500 times a day around here as the adults break their arms, patting themselves on the back on how whole they are. It goes on for a long while until I'm actually struggling to keep myself from yawning, which would be almost as bad as sneezing. That's when I catch the first whiff of incense mist from the vaporizer. And it hits me that Dad is saying a lot less, and his voice sounds kind of drowsy. Jet points, but I already see it. A blue light gleams off my father's forehead. I tilt my head for a better angle and spot the pen in Ivory's hand. It's illuminated, and Ivory draws it back and forth in front of Dad, exactly the way Jet described it. We listen to Ivory's rich, almost musical voice. At first, it's the same kind of stuff she tells us kids. Empty your minds of all thought. Concentrate only on your breath. When I breathe in, I breathe in. When I breathe out, I breathe out. Dad says along the meditation with the Pathfinder. You are immensely relaxed and filled with joy, Ivory goes on, happier than you've ever been in your entire life. That's new. We kids just get to empty our minds. We don't get to fill them with relaxation and joy. Maybe it's like voting. We're not old enough yet. Your joyfulness lifts you up as if you are lighter than air. You are happy. You are healthy. You are whole. From your great height, you look down at the source of all your happiness, the oasis, and all at once, Ivory's tone drops an octave. It's gone. The next thing we hear is a pitiful mewling sound. It's so foreign, so heartbroken. It takes me a minute to recognize it's coming from my own father. I can't see his face because his head is slumped, but his shoulders are shaking with emotion. He's crying, sobbing at the thought of losing the oasis. My first instinct is to bust through the grate and go to Dad and tell him all this isn't real. Jet seems to read my mind and reaches out an arm to bar my way. Do you want to save the oasis? Ivory demands. Yes, Dad blubbers. I'll do anything. I've lived all my 12 years with my father, and I've never seen him so devastated, so vulnerable, reduced to whimpering like a baby. It's the most horrible experience ever. Ivory is speaking more quietly now, and for a few long moments I can't make out what she's saying. The next time I hear Dad, though, he's totally normal, except for a nasal tone from all that sobbing. It's like he has no memory of the giant breakdown he just suffered. Beside me, Jet exhales heavily, so it was hard for him too, not just because it was my father. The session ends a few minutes later with Dad thanking Ivory for guiding through my best meditation so far. The achievement is entirely yours, Ivory assures him. I provide merely the breath of the wind that stirs your chimes. Scrunched next to Jet in the narrow space of the duct, I notice something odd. At that moment, I feel no itch anywhere in my body. None at all. Zero. All I can think of is the memory of my father weeping like a heartbroken child. It's a sound I'm never going to be able to unhear.